About a week ago, I posted a 1-minute clip of an interview of my favorite guitarist of all time, Eddie Van Halen. This appeared on May 3rd, 2013, 10 years ago. And Eddie, the 10 years ago matters. Eddie is with Piers Morgan, who used to have an interview show on CNN, and the rapper LL Cool J. If you don't know LL Cool J, he was super big in the 90s and early 2000s. Eddie is telling about the story when he was asked to play on Michael Jackson's record, Beat It, which was on the Thriller album, which is what pushed Michael Jackson into superstardom. So this video has gone viral. In fact, we've had over 55,000 likes, over 1,200 comments on our Instagram page. I have been surprised by the comments. I have been surprised by the viralness of it. So we're going to listen to the 1-minute comment of Eddie about Michael Jackson, and then we're going to give our opinions on it.
Let's do it.
That's
Here we go.
Long lead in. Thank you for listening.
Well, you basically word for worded the interview. I like it. Here we go.
I would not go into number one.
Is
It's
it
your
true?
fault.
Is it true you didn't get paid to be on the
I
Jackson?
did it as a favor, you know.
So Michael Jackson rings up and says, Eddie, you're the best guitarist in the world. Can you play on my song Beat It? It's a smash hit around the world, and you get $0.
Well, I didn't ask for anything. It was about 20 minutes out of my life. Quincy had called me up and asked me if I wanted to do it. And honest to God truth, the band's policy was, you know, we don't do things outside of the band at the time. And everybody's out of town, so I had no one to ask. And I swear to God, I figured, who's going to know if I play on this Black Kid's record? But the funniest thing of all was I actually rearranged the song. The section they wanted me to solo over, it was just, you know, there's no chord changes underneath it. So I had him rearrange the song, and then Michael came in, and I said, oh, I hope you don't mind, I changed your song. And he listens, and he goes, no, I really like that high-fast stuff you do. And that was it. You know, it took about 20 minutes out of my
What do
life.
you feel about what happened to me?
Okay. Well, that's it. Darren, you take it away.
Okay, so just 1 minute. Look, as a Van Halen fan, I've known that story a long, long time. This video has gone viral and gotten a lot of response, and like most things in life, it's been debated about in social media. And the comments, a lot of them, surround around two things. One, the fact that Eddie Van Halen says, who's going to know that I play on this Black Kids record? And there's a lot of accusations about racism. The other comments are around the van was on vacation,
Hiatus,
and there's nobody for us to call. Yeah. And so there's a lot of people saying Eddie brought race into this, and Michael was a big star, that kind of thing. And also, he just did it and went out of he didn't follow the band's policy because he didn't get a hold of everybody. So I want to focus the conversation around those two things. I'll give my opinions. I've known about the story a long time. I'm surprised by the comments. But let's start with the first thing. Micah, do you find, and again, this is 10 years ago, in 2013, do you find Eddie's comments to be racist or racial in nature?
You know, I care about words, Darren, right?
Yes.
And I think that in life, we, as a culture, we've kind of digressed on the amount of words we've used since back in Shakespeare's days. But regardless, I think words are really important. So he said playing on this little Black Kids record. I mean, if we're talking about color, is that currently inappropriate? So if the answer to that question is yes, and we need to restructure our verbiage, then I think we should as a community.
Well,
I don't
he didn't
necessarily
say
know.
little, but yeah, he did say Black Kids.
I thought he said Little Black Kids album.
No, he did not say little. He said Black Kids record.
Fair enough. Either way. So I don't know. Like, I honestly don't know if the verbiage is something that's offensive and is incorrect. It doesn't seem like Eddie, by any means, is being offensive when he's saying it. Like, it doesn't feel like that's his intention at all. Did seem like he hesitated a little bit after he said it, but again, we're getting nitpicky here. So I think what's important to me is the constant evolution and education of how we phrase and word things. And I think it's important as a culture that we all start making adjustments together for the better. I honestly do not know in this situation, but obviously people are a little offended by it. So
yeah, well, a lot of people are more than offended by it. So Look, Eddie's no longer here with us. Here's what I think Eddie was trying to say. And I recognize I say this as a middle-aged white man who lives in Texas, and there comes a lot of baggage with that. What people don't remember, or they're not old enough to know, is this. In the early 80s, Michael Jackson was not big. He was not the superstar before Thriller came out. He was the little kid in Jackson 5. And in those days, we had this thing in marketing and in sales and labels where we had white music and black music. And we had charts that said, here's the top rock charts, here's the this, and here's the top R&B, and here's the top black music. That was how we defined things. I believe Eddie was saying he was a rock person in the early 80s. Michael Jackson was a pop R&B person. And before the internet, those two worlds, those two audiences did not intersect. We weren't aware. I didn't know who Michael Jackson was in 1981 and 1982. I knew the Jackson 5, but not Michael Jackson. Mm-hmm. And I think what Eddie's trying to convey is he was saying, who's going to know I played on this R&B artist, this pop artist? Yeah. Because his audience and Michael's audiences are not the same. Yeah. And at the time when he recorded it, he had no idea it was going to be the largest album like ever recorded. Mm-hmm. And so I think it was less about race and more about genre of music. And I think that's where people are missing the point.
Well, I don't know if I don't think anyone's missing the point. I think if I was to ask you if he should have just said unknown artist, is that a more appropriate terminology?
It is today,
but also
it is today. But I think this is how far we've come with this kind of stuff. In 2013, I don't think we were as quickly to jump on that type of misstep.
Yeah, but I also don't think there's a problem with I don't think there's a problem with questioning how we're responding and verbalizing things. You know, if you were to ask Eddie today if he would have preferred if he said the unknown artist, I'd be curious of his answer.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we won't get to learn.
Yeah.
But the question then becomes, how far to go we back and police this? Because there are people who routinely criticize the show Friends, which was in the 90s and early 2000s, that there weren't people of color there, and they made fun of fat people with Monica and things like this, and they're now boycotting from 25 years ago.
Yeah, but I also think that, one, why is anyone so offended if we're looking at, hey, we maybe need to restructure our verbiage?
Right.
And, hey, these things are more
By the way,
delicate.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So
I just don't think Eddie's intention was anything racial. I think he was talking about genre of music, and he chose his words poorly.
I mean, I think I completely agree. And there's nothing wrong with saying, a black artist or a white artist or somebody saying and celebrating the diversity. I don't think he had ill intentions. I do think, and I'm constantly trying to educate myself further on understanding the things that I don't know. And that's hard. And that's where as society, sometimes it feels like, things are pushing on us. And sometimes they push frankly too far in order to create a balance, and I don't actually necessarily believe that that's the right way to do it, but sometimes that's what happens. Regardless, I think it's a great debate, and I actually love that it's caused the conversation because that is one way that we all get a little bit closer together. So I think it's a good thing.
So again, this is the Mad Opinions. These opinions belong to Micah and Darren and nobody else's. So the second part of this is the Eddie says, hey, the band had a policy, we don't do things out of the band. Everyone was on vacation, so we had no one to call. There's a lot of comments that say, oh, he could have reached people. He knew what he was doing. Yeah. He went against the band's policy.
Yeah.
All right. This is my only comment. Whether he went against the band's policy or not, it was his band. It was always been his band. He started it. It's his name.
100%.
Whatever. I think he did really think, on some level of naivety, that it was no big deal. And again, how would he know the Beat It was going to be the biggest rock song there?
Well, he was working with one of the biggest producers of all time,
that's
Quincy
true.
Jones. I'll bet he had a sneaking suspicion. And it was coming from the Jackson 5. It wasn't like Michael Jackson was unknown. I actually thought the comment was kind of like flippant.
Tongue in cheek?
Yeah, 100%. You're like, oh yeah, Michael Jackson. Like, I get it. It wasn't big until he hit it, but come on, you're with Quincy Jones. It's probably going to blow up.
Here's the part that I find funny. Okay, I was alive in 1982. When people went on vacation, You didn't hear from him. You can't
Yes,
just
I
say,
agree
you
with
can't
this.
just call the operator and go, I'd like to call Florida, please, and talk to my friend. There were no cell phones.
Yeah.
And so if people left town, you didn't talk to them until they got back. So when Eddie says there was no one to call, don't forget that. I believe him. I believe that part. There was nobody to call.
But I will say here, you're being what they call a fanatic, and you're being blinded by the headlights, because I guarantee you it went like this. Quincy Jones, who's Quincy Jones?
Oh, he's the man.
Calls Eddie and goes, "Trust me, this kid's album is the next big thing." And Eddie goes, "I'm coming on. Screw it, I'll do it." And it was Eddie's band, and he should have done it. And I'm glad you did it. And way to go, Eddie, because it made the track better and it was more fun. I do think Eddie should have been paid, but whatever. I'm sure Eddie's got
the legend goes they bought him a case of beer.
I'm sure Eddie has plenty of money. I'm sure he's doing okay. And then Eddie was like, Eddie probably like tried that, maybe, possibly tried the bad house line. He tried the house down the roadhouse line. But regardless, I think Eddie was ignorant and knew at the same time.
Well, the last part, this is really quick. The last part of
I
this
love
is
the whole interview.
for those people that reacted to the video and they said, "Oh, there's no way he did that solo in 2 takes and did it in 20 minutes."
Oh, he did.
Yes, he did. You know
100%.
why? Because he didn't do it in 20 minutes. He practiced for 8 hours a day for 30 years to learn how to do it in 20 minutes.
Eddie wrote that solo in 20 minutes, gang. If you've ever been around a great musician, like a really great musician,
he absolutely did it.
They
that
just
way.
took what came out. Quincy had him run through it 5 times. They snagged one. That was it. End of the story. Okay.
Yep.
End of the conversation. 100%.
All right, so that's it. Thank you all for listening.